The story of where humanity comes from is one of the greatest mysteries we have ever tried to solve. For thousands of years, people from every corner of the world have passed down creation stories, each one offering its own explanation for how we came to exist. Among the most well-known and influential is the story found in the Bible, the story of Adam and Eve. This story has been told for generations, shaping the beliefs of billions of people. According to the book of Genesis, Adam, the first man, was formed by God from the dust of the earth. God then breathed life into him, and Adam became a living being. Later, God created Eve, the first woman, using one of Adam's ribs. Together, they lived in the Garden of Eden, a beautiful paradise where they were instructed to care for the garden and obey one simple rule: do not eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. But what's fascinating is that the Bible's story of creation is not the only one. Long before the Bible was written, the Sumerians, one of the oldest known civilizations, had their own version of how humans came to be. In the ancient Sumerian texts, especially the Atrahasis, a group of powerful beings called the Anunnaki are said to have created humans. These celestial beings, according to the story, formed humanity out of clay mixed with the blood of a sacrificed god. The purpose? To make humans into workers who could take over the hard labor that the gods no longer wanted to do. When we compare these two stories, the similarities are hard to ignore. Both describe humanity being made from the earth itself. Both tell of humans being given life by something divine. And both mention a special relationship between the creators and the created, where humans were assigned tasks to serve or maintain the environment. These ancient accounts, separated by time and culture, seem to share the same underlying message that humanity was created not purely out of love, but perhaps out of necessity. When we take a closer look, the similarities between the biblical creation story and the ancient Sumerian texts become too clear to brush aside. In both stories, incredibly powerful beings create humanity, not randomly, but with a specific purpose in mind. In the Bible, God forms Adam from the dust of the ground and breathes life into him. Then he creates Eve from Adam's rib to be his companion. The two are placed in the Garden of Eden, where they are given a clear role to care for the garden and live under God's instructions. Now, turn to the Sumerian creation story and you find something surprisingly similar. The Anunnaki, described as celestial beings who came from the heavens, created humans by mixing clay with the blood of a god who was sacrificed. The result was a new being, part earthly, part divine, designed specifically to take over the difficult tasks that the Anunnaki no longer wanted to perform. Humans, according to the Sumerians, were made to serve, to maintain the earth, provide food, and ease the burden on their creators. Notice the parallels. Both stories begin with beings of higher power creating humanity from the earth, clay, or dust. Both mention that this act involved more than just physical matter. Divine energy or essence was added to bring humans to life. Both place humanity into a defined role, responsible for working the land and maintaining order. Even the setting of Eden, often seen as a peaceful paradise, could be viewed differently. Could it have been a kind of controlled environment or observation zone? After all, the first humans were under constant guidance and restriction. The resemblance between these ancient accounts raises a simple but powerful question: are these just coincidental similarities? Or are they two cultural versions of the same story, interpreted differently over time? Could it be that the story of Adam and Eve is not unique, but part of a much older narrative shared by humanity, one that hints at a deeper and perhaps hidden history behind our very existence? In the Sumerian tradition, one figure stands out as the key to humanity's creation: Enki. Unlike some of the other Anunnaki, who grew tired and frustrated with their heavy labor, Enki is portrayed as wise and compassionate. He saw the growing problem among the gods. The Anunnaki, who were originally tasked with overseeing the Earth's resources, were now overwhelmed. They had to mine, farm, and manage the planet themselves, and it was wearing them down. Faced with mounting unrest, Enki offered a solution that would forever change the course of human history. He proposed creating a new being, one capable of taking over the physical labor and maintaining the Earth. According to the Atrahasis, this wasn't just a random act of creation. Enki carefully crafted humanity using clay from the earth, mixed with the blood of a sacrificed god. The result was a being that carried both earthly substance and divine essence. This is remarkably similar to the biblical account of God forming Adam from the dust and breathing life into him. But the motive behind the creation in the Sumerian version is critical. Humans were not made out of love or companionship. They were designed for work. They were the labor force the Anunnaki needed. This perspective adds an entirely new layer to the story of Adam and Eve. In the Bible, Adam is told to tend the Garden of Eden, to work it and take care of it. But if we apply the Sumerian lens, Eden might not have been a paradise in the romantic sense, but more like an enclosed, controlled environment, perhaps even a sophisticated agricultural or experimental zone where the first humans were observed and guided closely by their creators. Could it be that Adam and Eve were not just the first humans, but the first successful version of a human prototype? Was Eden a garden, or was it a laboratory? These questions challenge how we view the origin story we have been told. They push us to consider whether ancient myths were trying to preserve a memory, not just of creation, but of creation with a purpose, one rooted not in divine love alone, but in necessity and control. One of the most mysterious elements of the biblical creation story is the tree of knowledge. On the surface, it seems simple, a tree whose fruit was forbidden. But as we dig deeper, the meaning of this tree may be far more profound. In the story of Adam and Eve, the tree of knowledge was said to give the ability to know good and evil. Eating its fruit changed everything. Adam and Eve, once innocent, suddenly became aware of their nakedness, their mortality, and the reality of the world around them. They were no longer just caretakers of Eden. They became conscious, self-aware beings capable of making choices. But what if this wasn't just a spiritual awakening, but something more? In Sumerian mythology, we find a similar pattern. The Anunnaki intentionally limited humanity's knowledge and capabilities. They designed humans to serve, not to question or rebel. The humans were powerful enough to do the work the gods needed, but not powerful enough to challenge them. Could the tree of knowledge, in this context, represent more than just a moral test? Could it have been a way to restrict knowledge, keeping humans under control? When Adam and Eve chose to eat the forbidden fruit, were they simply disobeying a rule? Or were they accessing something they were never supposed to have, advanced knowledge, deeper awareness, or even hidden capabilities? This act of defiance mirrors countless ancient stories across cultures. In Greek mythology, Prometheus stole fire, a symbol of knowledge and technology, and gave it to humans, angering the gods. In both stories, the punishment wasn't just about breaking the rules, it was about humans stepping beyond the boundaries set for them by their creators. The consequence for Adam and Eve was banishment from Eden. But perhaps this wasn't just a punishment, but a safeguard. With knowledge in hand, humanity could no longer be contained within the garden. This raises the question, was Eden actually a place of safety and blessing, or was it a controlled environment designed to limit humanity's potential until the day they dared to break free? The story of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the Garden of Eden is often seen as a punishment, a fall from grace. But if we step back and look at it from another angle, it starts to look more like a calculated move, a necessary shift in humanity's development. According to the Bible, after eating from a tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve gained awareness. They now knew good and evil, and they saw the world with different eyes. God said, "The man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil." This statement is deeply revealing. It hints at a fear, or at least a concern, that humans, with this new awareness, might reach a level of autonomy that could rival their creators. If Eden was in fact a controlled environment, a kind of experiment, then Adam and Eve's awakening posed a real threat to the balance of power. The expulsion wasn't just about disobedience, it was about stopping them before they could go even further. Notice that after they ate the fruit, God specifically blocked their access to the tree of life, which would have given them immortality. With both knowledge and eternal life, humans would no longer be under divine control. This pattern shows up in other ancient myths too. In the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki carefully managed what humans could and could not do. They gave humanity enough intelligence to work, but limited their freedom. In Greek mythology, Zeus punished Prometheus for giving humans the gift of fire, which symbolized knowledge and power. These stories share a common theme, humanity reaching for more and the gods stepping in to limit them. But ironically, the so-called punishment of being expelled may have been the very thing that allowed humans to evolve. Outside Eden, without constant supervision, Adam and Eve had to survive on their own. They built shelter, grew food, and formed communities. It was the beginning of human civilization. Could it be that humanity's true strength came not from being protected, but from being forced to grow beyond the walls of Eden? What makes the story of Adam and Eve even more intriguing is that it isn't unique. The theme of humanity being created to serve, only to later rebel or break free, shows up in ancient myths all around the world. In Greek mythology, we meet Pandora, the first woman, created by the gods not as a gift, but as a calculated response to mankind receiving forbidden knowledge. Her opening of the famous box unleashed both suffering and hope, just as Adam and Eve's act in Eden led to hardship but also opened the door to growth and independence. In Hindu tradition, Manu, the first man, plays a role in maintaining cosmic order, showing that humanity's origins have long been tied to responsibilities, often under the watchful eyes of higher powers. When you start to notice these recurring patterns across cultures, the idea of the first humans being created, given a role, limited in knowledge, and eventually stepping beyond the boundaries set for them, you realize that the Adam and Eve story might not be an isolated account. It could be part of a much older and much wider tradition shared by civilizations that had no direct contact with each other. In Sumerian mythology, this theme is even more direct. The Anunnaki created humans for the sole purpose of serving them. These humans were not created to be equals or companions. They were laborers, plain and simple. The Anunnaki needed help managing the Earth's resources, and humans were their solution. But like the story of Adam and Eve, Sumerian accounts also hint at moments where humans gained knowledge or power beyond what the gods intended, threatening the original balance. This raises a powerful question. Could Adam and Eve have been more than just the first humans? Could they have been the first successful version of a carefully engineered being, designed to serve but eventually destined to break free? And could Eden have been less of a paradise and more of a testing ground? When we compare these ancient myths, it becomes harder to see the story of Genesis as purely symbolic. Instead, it starts to look like a fragment of a much older, and possibly true, account of human origins. One of the most thought-provoking ideas hidden within these ancient stories is the possibility that humanity was never created purely out of love, but out of necessity. In the biblical account, Adam is placed in the Garden of Eden and given the task of working and caring for it. Many see this as a divine blessing, humanity given the honor of tending to God's creation. But when we compare this to the older Sumerian texts, this task takes on a much deeper, and perhaps darker, meaning. In the Atrahasis, humans were created because the Anunnaki were overwhelmed. They needed help managing the earth, maintaining the land, farming, and carrying out all the difficult tasks they no longer wanted to do themselves. In this version, humanity was not created as a gift, but as a tool. The Anunnaki engineered humans with enough intelligence to be useful, but not enough to rebel. The job given to Adam in Eden sounds eerily similar to the role assigned to humans in the Sumerian myths. Tending the garden, managing nature, and maintaining order, these aren't just symbolic tasks. They are the exact responsibilities ancient humans would have needed to perform if they were created to serve. The so-called paradise could have been more of a controlled environment, a place where early humans were carefully monitored, their abilities shaped and limited. And yet, even after Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden, their role didn't change. They continued to labor. Outside the garden, they had to till the ground, grow crops, and survive using their own knowledge. The theme of labor never disappears. It seems to follow humanity everywhere. What's even more fascinating is that this theme of human servitude isn't limited to the Bible or Sumerian myths. In Hindu, Greek, and even other ancient traditions, humans are consistently portrayed as beings created to serve gods, maintain balance, or fulfill the needs of higher powers. This recurring idea forces us to ask, were we truly created to be free, or were we designed to serve? And if so, how much of that ancient legacy still echoes in the way we live today? As we look deeper into these ancient stories, a troubling pattern begins to emerge, the idea that much of humanity's true origins may have been hidden, suppressed, or simply forgotten. The question is, why? Why would knowledge about where we come from and why we were created be concealed? History shows us that control over information has always been a powerful tool. Throughout time, conquering civilizations, religious institutions, and even modern authorities have controlled narratives by deciding which stories are remembered and which are erased. One of the greatest examples is the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, where countless ancient texts, possibly containing valuable insights into our origins, were lost forever. The biblical narrative itself is also selective. When the Bible was canonized, certain texts were included, while others, like the Book of Enoch, which speaks openly about celestial beings interacting with humanity, were left out. Why were these stories excluded? Were they too controversial, or did they reveal truths that might challenge the more accepted narrative? Even today, mainstream academia often avoids or outright dismisses theories suggesting that ancient humans were influenced or even created by advanced beings. Many label these ideas as pseudoscience, despite the fact that ancient Sumerian tablets and other archaeological discoveries continue to point to a more complex story than what we've been taught. This raises another important question. What's at stake? What would change if we accepted that humanity might have been created not purely out of divine love, but out of necessity or even as part of a larger plan by more advanced beings? Such a revelation would challenge not only religious beliefs, but also the foundation of how we see ourselves. It would force us to rethink free will, autonomy, and the human purpose itself. And perhaps most concerning, how much knowledge have we already lost? What secrets were burned, buried, or rewritten to keep us unaware of our full potential? Could it be that by hiding our origins, those in power have also hidden the key to understanding who we really are and what we're truly capable of? So, what does all of this really mean for us today? Why should we care about these old stories of gods, gardens, and forbidden knowledge? The truth is, these ancient accounts may hold more than just symbolic or religious value. They could offer us real insight into who we are and where we came from. Whether it's the story of Adam and Eve, the myths of the Anunnaki, or the countless other creation stories from around the world, they all seem to point toward a common thread. Humanity may have been created with a purpose, and that purpose may not have been entirely in our favor. But here's the twist. Despite the limitations, despite the control, humanity did not stay where it started. The expulsion from Eden, often seen as the great punishment, might actually be the beginning of human independence. Cast out from a controlled environment, Adam and Eve had to adapt, to innovate, and to survive on their own. This is where humanity's story really begins. No longer watched over directly, humans became builders, creators, and explorers. They formed communities, developed tools, discovered agriculture, and eventually gave birth to civilizations. It's the same pattern we see in countless other myths. In Greek mythology, Prometheus gave humans fire, a symbol of knowledge, and though they were punished, they also advanced. In Hindu tradition, humans took on responsibilities that shaped the balance of the world. Over and over again, these stories hint that while humanity may have started as a servant species, we refused to stay that way. We grew beyond the role we were given. So the real question becomes, are we still living under the shadow of our original purpose? Or have we already broken free without realizing it? Maybe the human story isn't just about creation and control, but about defiance, resilience, and the ability to rise above limitations. Perhaps the story of Adam and Eve, and so many others like it, is not just about how we were made, but about how we refused to stay as we were designed. For centuries, humanity has been on a relentless quest to understand its origins. From sacred texts to ancient myths, from lost libraries to forbidden artifacts, the pieces of the puzzle have always been scattered, often hidden in plain sight. The stories of the Anunnaki, the biblical account of Adam and Eve, and countless similar myths from around the world share more than just common themes. They seem to whisper the same message. We were created, perhaps not purely out of love, but out of necessity, shaped, limited, and controlled by powers beyond our understanding. And yet, despite those limits, humanity has consistently broken free. When Adam and Eve were cast out of Eden, it may have seemed like the end, but it was actually the beginning. Stripped of direct, divine supervision, they were forced to survive, to create, and to take ownership of their destiny. Their story mirrors our own reality. Every time humanity faces obstacles, whether natural disasters, oppressive systems, or technological limitations, we find ways to adapt, grow, and push forward. The bigger question today is, are we still living within boundaries set long ago? Have modern institutions, belief systems, and even scientific paradigms continued to limit our understanding of who we are and what we are capable of? Or are we now standing at the edge of our own version of the garden's gates, ready to step fully into our potential? Perhaps the story of Adam and Eve is more than a warning. Perhaps it's an invitation, an ancient reminder that knowledge, even when forbidden, holds the power to free us. It teaches us that true growth comes not when we stay safely inside the garden, but when we step into the unknown, take responsibility, and become the creators of our own story. In today's world, as we rediscover ancient knowledge and challenge the narratives handed down to us, we are once again faced with the choice. Will we accept the limits set upon us? Or will we, like Adam and Eve, find the courage to seek the truth, no matter the cost? Because maybe, just maybe, the real garden was never meant to keep us safe, but to push us to become more.